In 3, 2, 1, and go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Gary and Kenny Show. I'm Gary Kroger in Waterloo, Iowa, and I am with
Ken Seisler, who's in Calabasas, California.
Hello, Ken.
Hey, Gary, how are things there today?
It's cold. You know, another cold snap. It's like 7 degrees below zero and miserable.
I've been hearing nothing but record-breaking weather. You know, on the national news all the time, it's almost like they're doing the weather every day. I don't remember when we were growing up whether or not the national news had a weatherman or person.
Well, they did, but weather wasn't such a story. It's the same weather. And I'm not saying that climate change isn't real. It is. The extremes are more frequent. There's no question about it.
Right. I'm just saying that when you watch the news, the weather is big news all the time.
Yeah, it's big news because we now have the technology to track it. It becomes a story because everybody's always curious.
But let's talk about weather women.
Weather women?
Do you have a weather woman in Waterloo?
Yeah.
We have nothing but weather women in Los Angeles now. I think maybe there's a few guys, but they're going. Well, most of the weather women in Los Angeles are incredibly attractive.
Isn't everybody in Los Angeles incredibly attractive? You have attractive news people.
Well, okay. Well, yes, we do. I mean, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's amazing to me that, I mean, back in my day, I was growing up, it was Tex Antoine, Storm Fields. You know, it was these old weather guys.
Jim Ganal.
Okay. Whatever.
Jim Ganal. Yeah.
And now,
they were weathermen. Weathermen. It was a male-dominated industry.
Do you think there's a school, like a meteorological school?
Yes, there is.
And at that school, you have these really attractive women going there and to learn how to be a weather woman?
Yes.
Well, that should be. Now, if I was a young man, that's where I would hang out.
With the weather girls?
Well, just in the area. You know,
where they eat.
Well, I mean, not only
are they,
it's a good looking group. No question, it's a good looking group.
Well, again,
and they got to be bright.
This gets dangerously, sexist. Not us, but the subject is, because what is a good looking person? You're talking about a very specific stereotype of a good looking woman, right? You said a very attractive weather women. Yeah. So you're talking slender, shapely.
Well, I understand what you're getting, that it's beauty is in the eyes of the beholder.
Yes, but
now when I get to behold it, I will find it beautiful.
I understand what you prefer to behold, but I think that the industry, just like the news industry, people of a certain
to go on, but it didn't always used to be that way. You have to understand, Walter Cronkite, you couldn't say was a handsome, strapping hunk of a man.
Right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are just winging this because there's no formed idea here. But
that's true. It's just a general kind of thing, like you say to people, how are you? How's the weather?
Well, it's all about ratings. And once upon a time, it was about journalism. And so you had journalists, and there was no criteria to be attractive. But now networks, even local television stations, want you to view. So the attractive weather woman might get more viewers. In fact, they do.
I will confess that I happen to watch my news channel out here because she's very attractive. The weather girl.
Yeah. No. And in your market, you can make those choices. We have whoever we can get to do the weather. I mean, it's a miracle that I haven't been asked to do the weather. I mean, yeah, we get weather people.
Right. All right. Moving on.
Well, hey, when I'm bored, I tend to look at your Facebook page.
You like to watch?
I like to watch your Facebook. It's not when I'm bored, but there are certain people I will circle around because I'm curious what they have to say. And sometimes your posts are very political. Sometimes they're about movies. Often they're about television shows.
That's true.
And I will find that very stimulating. And sometimes they're just plain stupid. The other day,
those are my favorite.
They're my favorites too. The other day you posted something about tomato sauce. You made spaghetti. and you didn't have sauce,
okay,
or even a sauce alternative. Can you explain this to our listeners?
My wife had to go to San Diego because, as I explained before, my daughter and my 2 grandchildren and my son-in-law live in San Diego, and they needed my wife to come down there and help out. So I was left to fend for myself, which is no big deal because I fended before. I was a bachelor for a long time. Yeah, I never starved when I was just by myself. I'm not dependent on my wife to take care of me. She just said, you have to fend for yourself. And I was okay. I was fine with fending.
You were fine with that.
So when dinner time came around, because that's usually when I think about what I'm going to eat, I figured, you know what, I'm just going to do something simple. You know, I don't really like to cook for myself and make a mess for myself and then clean up after myself. So it's like making a lot of work for myself.
Which I love to do, by the way, and I will tonight as a bachelor by myself. Well, my wife's in Chicago. We'll talk about that, but I love to cook.
I just don't think I'm worth the hassle of trying to do all those things. It's just a self-esteem issue, Gary. But that's
you don't think you're worth taking to dinner?
Yes. So
or making dinner for.
Okay. Right. So that aside, I figured the simple thing will be I will make myself some pasta. So I boiled the water, went around waiting until, for 15 minutes or whatever, came back while I was born, opened up the cover, took out the pasta, took a fistful of pasta. You never know how much to put in for one person.
You don't. I do, but you don't. I understand.
I don't. Okay. So I take a fistful, then I put a fistful in and it goes, oh, that doesn't look enough. Or maybe, then I take 1 or 2 little strands and I add another one. And it's just
sure.
Like that, right? So now the water's boiling. So now I figure, it's about 12, 15 minutes and I'll get 11. It. Maybe I should prepare the sauce. Mm-hmm. So the first thing I do is I open the refrigerator because maybe there's a jar of sauce that's already opened there. And I start to rummage through the refrigerator. I go to the bottom shelf, I go to the top shelf, I go to the same, and then eventually I have to look at the side door.
I eventually go to the pantry. Maybe there's
on the refrigerator, the side door. It's amazing how many times I will stare at the refrigerator and go, I don't see the ketchup. And not look at the side door when it's open.
Okay. All right.
So I'm looking at the side door. There's nothing in there. There's no sauce, no tomato.
No tomato-based anything.
Nothing. So now I literally am emptying the refrigerator, and now I'm starting to really sweat. So I open up the pantry, and now there's got to be stuff. There's got to be a can. There's got to be something of a sauce of some kind for the pasta. Again, I
and you'd even accept a taco sauce at this point, right? I mean, any sort.
No, that's not true. As a matter of fact, when I posted, people saying, "Well, why don't you use ketchup?" I think even you said ketchup. I mean, I did think of anything that was red I could put on the sauce. But when I considered putting ketchup on the pasta, just sounded disgusting. But anyhow, I'll finish quickly. So anyhow, no sauce.
No sauce.
I can't believe it. And my wife is Italian, by the way, half Italian, and no sauce. So wait till I tell her relatives we had no sauce. Okay, so now it's like, well, what the fuck? Pardon my friend. I don't know why I curse all the time. Why? Anyhow, why the hell am I? What am I going to do? I can't eat dry pasta. So I'm going to drench it in butter.
Okay.
You're not going to believe what happened next.
You have no butter.
No butter. Now the pasta is boiling. There's no reversing that. There's no going back and say. I know that in a few minutes when that timer goes off and dings, it's going to tell me that it is time to take the pasta off and eat that dry pasta.
Yeah. I have a number of problems here. I'm
just going to point out, I cannot believe. And I have to be very.
So what you're going to say is you can't believe that your wife didn't have these.
No, I'm not blaming her.
You're not blaming her.
I should know. The lesson learned is always check for sauce before you put the pasta in. This would have been all fine. I never would have had this problem when I thought of pasta. I said I put the pasta in there and I made the general assumption that there's got to be sauce somewhere.
Okay, there's 2 things here. You're right. Pasta prioritizing. Very important. Know that you have the ingredients, first of all. But, Ken, there is no excuse to not have a tomato product in the home with which you can improvise a sauce. You have to do tomato inventory. You have to take a tomato. First of all, you should always have tomatoes. You should always have tomatoes, but there are no tomatoes. So you should always have tomato sauce or tomato paste. No tomato sauce, no tomato paste. Even ketchup, Ken. works in an emergency situation. This is just this is general tomato awareness. Mm. You put a nice garlic olive oil with that ketchup. Now make it a little lighter than you normally would, but it's delicious.
Well, in an emergency. I had very salty pasta. That was the only way I could flavor it. I put a lot of salt on it.
Ken, and to all the listeners, tomato awareness. You always have to have.
This is our public service announcement.
A number of tomato products. It's as important as having
vodka,
milk, butter, vodka, salt, pepper, a variety of tomato products. All right. First of all, I want to ask you a question, but I want to also plug the fact that Shelly Goldstein, a friend of mine, a brilliant comedian, writer, songstress, is going to be our interview today.
That's right.
But when you are alone, what do you cook? You're not a TV dinner person, are you?
Oh, no.
Oh, God forbid.
No. Oh, no.
So what do you make if you're not a cook?
Okay.
I mean,
that's a good question.
Let's put spaghetti aside.
Okay. I have in the past made hamburgers.
Okay. I'm only laughing because that's, remedial for us people who actually
you pack
cook.
It together.
Of course, I love a gourmet hamburger.
Right. I have.
Don't tell Steve
you what
Oates.
I made the other day, which I think was kind of creative on my part. We had, and I hope people appreciate this conversation, or maybe we'll get a slot on the cooking channel. I made poached salmon.
Okay.
Now, we have always tried to do salmon at home because you have to do fish.
I'm doing fish tonight.
See? Okay. We do it Monday just to get it over with.
Salmon once or twice a week.
Oh, that's great. Okay. Well, we do it just to get it over with because Deborah really doesn't like fish. And I do like fish, but to be honest with you, we've never really successfully cooked it at home. At a restaurant, I'll enjoy it because they put sauces on it and flavor it up and all that stuff. And Deborah doesn't do that, and I understand why. Anyhow, so we have grilled, we have baked, we have done everything to salmon, and we've had no success. So
no success?
Partial success. Success in terms of would I ever want to eat this again?
Well, that would be the barometer. Yeah. If the answer is no, that's not.
So generally, we have fish. We go, would we do this again? No, it's no. But anyhow, so I had one time had poached salmon. We have never poached it. And Deborah was down in San Diego again. She stayed down in San Diego. I was left to fend for myself once again.
A lot of fending.
Here I was fending. And I'm thinking to myself, because I didn't want meat because we had a big steak dinner the night before. And it was Monday. And I was like, okay, you know what? I think I should probably, eat healthy. I'll get some salmon. But I had remember once I get to a restaurant and I had poached salmon. And I thought, I'm going to try to poach a salmon. Okay.
Did you Google it then? Is that how you do it?
Yes.
So it's got your phone
but
going.
You know what? They got a scam going on these recipe things. If you Google, like I did, poached salmon, and it says simple recipe, and you click on it, there's no recipe there. You know what there is? There's 3 pages on the history of poached salmon. It was 1893, and Jedediah Franklin down in Nantucket took the thing, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I don't. And then it's like, oh, this is a simple. And then the person tells you, oh, this is a simple thing we like to do in the summer when the people come over and the fancy thing. And it's like, fuck you. I don't give it to summer. How do I poach the salmon?
I hear you.
Okay, I know you because I'm yelling. I'm raising my voice.
Well, what else is news? My wife still has COVID.
Well, you know what? She's a long hauler.
She's a long hauler because she's triple vaxxed, very careful, always has been, a masker. And that doesn't mean you don't get COVID, and it doesn't mean you can't get it badly. It just
where do you think she got it? Does she have like a clue where she
her daughter is in school, her daughter goes to high school. I mean, it could be anything. You can get it at the grocery store.
But did the daughter have symptoms?
No, but I mean, it can transmit any number of ways. But again, we believe that if she wasn't triple vaxxed and have the antibodies being created, that she would be much sicker than she is. In fact, she hasn't gotten terribly sick. It's just prolonged.
Yeah.
She just can't get rid of it.
Well,
completely.
I think this is, one of those long-term things. And I think you're probably going to start seeing the pharmaceutical companies, coming out with products for long haulers.
Oh, sure. There will be the NyQuil cure or for the symptoms of COVID.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, NyQuil is the cure for the symptoms.
So they are going to come out with a vaccine for 5 and under.
For 5 and under, yeah.
And you're a parent. Would you give it to your 5 and under?
I wouldn't hesitate. No, I would do the research, and I would ask, of course, with a doctor. I mean, it's not done just willy-nilly.
Well, given right now that the FDA says they're giving Pfizer this, my wife's reaction was, I'm going to wait. And I'm fine.
Well, I understand that, but I look, I'm not a scientist, but I've looked into it as most of us have.
But you played one on TV.
But I played I played a weatherman on TV too. But the science is that you are putting an inert version of the virus into your system, so it can't hurt you because it's dead. Right. But your antibodies figure this out. So
that's
when the real
mRNA messenger.
Right. Exactly. Right. So we all got that shot at 5, 6 years old for polio and this, that, and the other. We didn't question it. I remember standing in line. The needles were the size of a lawn dart. And you cried, but you did it.
Well, here's the interesting, and I'll use this as a tease for further shows so people can find out whether or not my grandson and my daughter, who are now granddaughter, I don't know if she's a baby, so maybe not her, but my grandson, who's 3 years old, whether or not that she is going, what my daughter's going, now my daughter's totally pro-vaccination. But I'm curious whether or not, given Deborah's stance, which is I want to do a wait and see here thing. So you people, if you keep tuning in to the Gary and Kenny show to find out if my grandchild gets vaccinated.
The truckers in Canada that are protesting the fact that they either need to be vaccinated or a 14-day quarantine, and so they're marching on the Canadian government. And somebody coined them the Flu Trucks Clan.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Which I think is brilliant.
I will say this, that I am now feeling very much like we should just, if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. But if you don't want to wear a mask, you don't have to wear a mask. That's where I am on it.
Well, I wear a mask. I don't always wear a mask, but I'm respectful in public situations. And if I'm in a small group situation, I will ask everybody, are you comfortable if are we all vaccinated? You know, the conversation is there. So,
and the reason I bring this up is that the LA Rams beat like the 49ers and at SoFi. And the pictures and supposedly inside SoFi, everybody's supposed to be wearing masks.
All right.
Well, and then after that, so when they're showing all the crowds, there are people wearing masks, but I would say a majority of people took their masks off.
Yes.
And I probably would have too. And then the governor and the mayor and some other people, Magic Johnson, all got caught because they had photos of them taken and they weren't wearing a mask. So obviously there's a backlash and they're calling for them to resign, you know. Originally, when this was all happening, I went full mask. But now I'm like, I don't know. I think that I'm now mask optional.
You're kind of with masks the way you are with tomatoes. I mean, maybe you have some, maybe you don't.
Huh. No, I got masks. And I'll tell you what happened. Now, I was a Jew growing up. I went to a lot of bar mitzvahs. To this day, I have 50-year-old, or even when my kids' friends that had bar mitzvahs, I will put on a jacket or a pair of pants, and there will always be a yarmulke.
Yeah, yes.
From years and years ago. Well, now the same thing's fucking happening with masks.
You put on a garment, and there's
a mask
in a pocket. Yeah, right.
It also occurs to me that if instead of finding a mask, I find a yarmulke, I could actually make a yarmulke into a mask as well.
Put some rubber bands on your yarmulke and wear
there you go. Can I segue?
Yeah.
So I don't know when this is going to air, but anyhow, it's news that Whoopi Goldberg said on The View that the Holocaust wasn't about race.
It was about
different
white people and white people.
Inhumanity towards a man.
Right.
Anyhow, she got a lot of backlash for that.
Yes.
Saying, well, you know, Whoopi, this is, you know, Hitler killed the Jews because he said they were an inferior race. Therefore, he thought they were race, and that's why he killed them, you know. So it was about race. So she's wrong on that. Okay.
Right.
But her point, which I understand, when she initially said it, was that it was with blacks and what happens to them and whites is race because you can see the black. You can see the white person. So it's automatically about race. But with Jews, it's like, and I think she said the story, if a Nazi came walking towards us and there was me and there was a white Jew, the Nazi would probably, take me first, take me. And if the white Jew said he wasn't Jewish, she'd probably leave him alone. Anyhow, she got suspended, and she'd had to go on.
She did.
And forget this. I absolutely have no problem with what she did. I have no problem with a lot of these people who get canceled. Yeah, she said something that was wrong. And
she said something that was wrong.
And why did they have to throw her off air?
Right. And to your point, it created a conversation. And there is a cogent point being made, as you pointed out. Here's the thing that strikes me. She immediately apologized.
That's what I'm saying.
Whereas on the other side of this, when they say those things, they double down. She owned it. True. She said, okay, I created a controversy. I'm sorry. This is what I'm trying to say. And I recognize where I was wrong. That's a grown-up difference between what she did and what Steve King does over and over and over.
That people get canceled. I mean, the fact that they got rid of Cuomo, considering what all the Fox people do over there, Hannity dealing directly with the president, and Cuomo gets fired at CNN, that aside. Anyhow, Jeff Zucker resigned from CNN. Do you know why he had to step down?
No.
You know who Jeff Zucker is?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So he was the head of CNN for the past 15 years or whatever. Before that, I think he was at NBC, Today's Show. Big guy. Big guy. Big. So he resigned because, as it turns out, he was having a consensual relationship with a woman who he worked with. Now,
legal age and all.
Both consenting. Doing it for years. They both divorced. Two single people working in an office developed a relationship, and he had to quit today.
Because it's inappropriate to have an office relationship? That's the criteria? All right, well, we've gone too far. We've gone too far. That's way too far. How do you meet? If you're single, who are you going to meet? Run into somebody at the grocery store? Well, then it's stalking. And I mean, I don't mean to be flippant, but that is ridiculous. Yeah. You are entitled to be an adult and have a relationship. And if you're truly an adult, guess what? You can work together too.
Well, what they're saying from the corporate office or whatever is that he never disclosed it to people. And that was the problem.
Which was a mature thing not to do.
I know.
I mean, I thought that was the training. It's like, hey, this is your own life. Keep it to yourself. You don't want competition. That is ridiculous. Now, also, and then we'll bring on Shelly, the Spotify thing. Somebody said, well, what do you think about Neil Young taking his thing, because of Joe Rogan's false information about vaccinations? Well, this is the paradox of freedom. Yeah. Spotify can keep Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's entitled to say that. It is free speech. He's entitled to do that. And Neil Young is entitled to protest by saying, well, da-da-da-da. So it's all okay. It's all okay no matter which side of this that you take. It's freedom of speech, freedom to protest. Now, I thought what Rogan did, and I'm not a huge Rogan fan, but he said, you know what? I should make an effort to bring the other side of my point of view on for a more balanced conversation. I think that's the mature thing to do. Now, should Neil Young still keep his
go back
off? Sure.
Have this conversation. It's just because you said somebody going on Spotify or going on something and just that on some kind of like media outlet that they can just say whatever they want to say. They have freedom of speech.
Well, yes, but freedom of speech does. Every amendment actually has parameters. You can't yell fire. You can't. No,
I know that. But if I am the provider,
yes,
of your time on my platform,
yeah,
okay. The truth of the matter is you don't have freedom of speech there because it's my platform, just like my restaurant.
Well, Spotify could say no to that speech. Is that what you're saying?
But they're trying to do a public relations thing. What I'm saying is, does freedom of speech Is freedom? Do I not have a responsibility as the person who provides the platform? And I'm talking specifically Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do I have a responsibility as the person who runs that platform to look out there and go, hey, this is not really free speech on my platform, folks. I control everything. Okay. Right. Now, do I have a public obligation? Maybe, I don't know. But it really is and it's PR and it's all this kind of stuff. But the reality is when people go on and go, I can say whatever I want. They're on somebody else's platform. This is a big, big issue. And Facebook, as far as I'm concerned, should have gone after these right-wing people and taken over years ago, and we would have avoided all these problems.
Propagating lies is a problem. Now, I do.
That's why I don't think Joe Rogan. That's why I don't think Joe Rogan really has free speech. I don't think he should have free speech.
Let's change to happier things and bring on my friend Shelly Goldstein, who is someone that I've known. I don't know, since college. She doesn't want me to say numbers, so many years.
I would think the name Shelly Goldstein is a very, very, very common name among the Jewish people. And I believe you would probably have male, because I think I knew a Shelley.
I don't know many Shelley.
Yeah, because there's a Sheldon. No,
I know what.
If you were Sheldon, you were Shelley.
Shelley is the Sheldon of female Goldsteins.
Well, that's because she's a female. What the hell is that?
Well, I don't know what that means, but let's just bring her on. Every time I hear about Shelley, I say, "What? She's doing what now?" I mean, she became a cabaret singer. She writes for award shows. She's a script consultant. She's a comedian. She's an actor. It's just a director. So let's just bring on Shelly Goldstein, who has a home in London, but right now she's in Santa Monica. Ladies and gentlemen, Shelly Goldstein.
Hello, Shelly.
Gentlemen, hello.
We knew each other, but you put me in a comedy show called Broadsides with me, Ira Glass, and you. And Gary Marshall came to see it. And lo and behold, Shelly is off to be a sitcom writer under the umbrella of Gary Marshall.
Following his brilliant move of bringing out Dana Olson the year before.
To work on a show, on one of his sitcoms?
I did. I was on the tail end of Laverne and Shirley.
Wow. And they hired you just because of the play that you had written and seen you in?
The play that I'd written and some other things that they'd seen. Gary Marshall saw Gary Kroger in our show. Ken, let me tell you about this show. There's a legendary improv experience at Northwestern that I was so lucky to be a part of, called The Meow Show.
Oh, that's right.
But it was a masculine thing.
Yeah.
like Luca Brasi, a masculine child. and the cast would usually be, 42 guys and 2 women, and the 2 women would get to do one sketch about menstruation and then you'd go home. And other than that, you'd be in the background going, "Oh, honey, you're so funny,"
Right.
And I was with some of the funniest people I've ever known in my entire career. They're still funny. They're still amazing. Paul Barros, Dana Olson, Rush Pearson, Bill Runsky, amazing people. But there was a movement that, can women be funny? So I was offered to direct and write and cast a show called, get this, it was a feminist view on comedy. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Broadsides. It was a good pun. It still is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Still is.
It was the Reagan years. And
well, of course, your first choice in a show called Broadside is to cast me.
It's to cast Gary Kroger and the great Ira Glass. And yeah, dare I say it was a really funny show. I was very, very proud of it. Gary was tremendous.
Shelly,
my question about
first improv. I gave Gary Kroger his first improv show. Very proud of that. I also cast you as Paul McCartney.
You can, and before you have a question,
okay.
You have a question here, Kenny, but I want to mention a sketch. The first time I remember improvising with you, it was very dark. I was JFK and you were Jackie.
Yes.
and we were in the motorcade, And the whole sketch was we noticed all the things going on, like, oh, look at that man up there with a gun in the window.
No.
Oh, the grassy knoll. There's some people over there.
Over with an umbrella. Odd that they'd be opening an umbrella, Jacqueline.
Window, waving at
There was a Jacqueline, please pass the Vaseline, whatever. It went south from there.
So basically,
it was
what
a
would
funny
happen
premise.
Is the button on this. And the thing is comedy needed threes. We did two wonderfully, and the third one just died worse than the people in the sketch. But what would happen is this was called Great Moments in History that might have happened to a woman.
That's right. That's right.
And so Gary would go, oh, excuse me, Jacqueline, I have to tie my shoelace.
Oh, yeah. And she got shot. Right? Shell, that is the punchline, and I forgot it. Thank you.
And then we did it. We take you now, 1865 to the Ford Theater. We're eating popcorn. Look, our American cousin. What a great play. So, Mary Todd, would you like me to get you some Raisinets?
So I get up and leave, and Mary Todd is shot. All right. Anyway, so
I don't
Kenny,
remember what the third one was. I just know that it was terrible.
I don't think we have to.
Wow.
Kenny, you had a question before
I
that.
did.
Wonderful reminiscence.
And yet, Gary and I have managed somehow to work beyond.
I just remember Jacqueline, is that a jar of Vaseline? I don't know. All right. We digress. Kenny, what was your question?
Wave at the people at the grassy knoll.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I did have a question, but I want to go back.
It's irrelevant now.
Really simple, and not simple. The reason I asked
The question is, how can you live with yourselves? How do you sleep at night?
No, wait. And then there was Jacqueline, could you please pass Caroline? That was in there somewhere too. All right. All right.
Well, we're going to go, but more assassination jokes in just a few minutes, folks. But I was curious that you got hired to do sitcoms. You hadn't written a script before, right? You hadn't known before.
You know something? I really appreciate this because the first three jobs I got, television writing, had nothing to do with television scripts. People read plays that I'd written, people read sketches that I'd written. And again, I thought that made perfect sense to me because I believe, and I'm really serious about this, if you can write, you can write. Now, not everybody should be able to write, every single show. I was watching Yellowstone last night. You don't want me on that writing staff. But if you can write, you can write. And they understood, the people that I worked with were wonderful about that. And whenever I've been in a position to read people's scripts, I don't need it to be, we're doing a half hour about chickens, so I need a script that falls into that category.
Yeah. Well, but back in those days, as I remember, sitcoms did have a much tighter format in terms of the character had to learn something at the end.
Oh yeah, it was. I came up at that time. I did, The Facts of Life and shows like that. But then, ironically, I did a lot of cop shows.
You did?
Drama?
Yeah. I did a show. I'll tell you a silly story. This is not a show you remember. In fact, I don't remember it. I don't remember the
Was I in it?
No, I
Did
don't
somebody
remember the
did a
title.
woman get shot?
Point Man was the title. Okay.
White men?
No, Point Man.
Oh, Point Man. Okay.
Like he's the point man.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is I can't believe I'm thinking of this now because I've totally forgotten it. But it was a very, very macho show. Very macho show. And it was a syndicated hour, and it was about this man who was, a Gary Kroeger type, tough, women loved him. He used to was at home.
You are a writer.
And and it was very, very, very macho. And I was kind of puzzled as to why they were calling me in to do it. And funnily enough, I ended up doing like 3 episodes of the show, which only lasted 1 season. So there, I killed another one. But I met with these 2 guys who were old showrunners. And when I say old, they at the time, one was probably in his 50s and one was probably in his 60s. So kids, just
Right, yeah.
but really nice guys, and they'd read my stuff. I'd been working on a vampire cop show called Forever Night for a few years before that.
Was that an original idea of yours?
No, that was another syndicated show.
That's an idea that would seem like it would fly. Vampire cop show.
And it was before the current vampire zombie,
mania.
And they were really kind, and they really liked my writing. And I pitched them a few ideas, and they bought them. They bought them in the room, and then we started breaking the story. And I'll never forget this. It was the mid '90s, so the first Gulf War had happened, and we got to a point where they said, and again, they were being nice to me. They were being real menschy to me. And they just said, look, we think you're a great writer. We love your dialogue. We love your character work. We know you get the show. We know this is going to be great. When we get to the action sequences, don't worry about it. We know you're a girl, and we'll just walk you through that. Now, in truth, a huge part of me just said, oh, thank God. Thank God, because that's not my best milieu. That's my husband's area of genius. But being the girl who did Broadside, I couldn't sort of let that pass. So I don't know where this came from, but I just looked at them and I said, oh, didn't my agents tell you? And they said, tell you what? I said, oh, I used to be a fighter pilot with the Israeli army.
Why, of course.
And they both did this. I'm not making this up. They just went, go on.
For those who are only listening, Shelly's mouth was agog and she went back in her chair.
Yeah. And they said, tell us about it. And they said, there's really not much to say. And they said, you don't look like what we'd think a fighter pilot looks like. And I said, no, I'm the key candidate. And suddenly I'm channeling Peter Falk in the original In-Laws, And I said, I'm tiny. I fit in the plane. You go, you do your sorties, you come back. That's it. You do
your sortie and you come back for dinner.
Have dinner. Sure. And I don't know what the hell I was talking about. And they suddenly, oh, well, and they're looking at me in a new way. And we were continuing to talk. And then later they said, well, this will bring in your experience. And, I'm an improver, but I'm not a lying sack bird. So I just said, guys, fellas, look at me. It's like, no, nobody wants me in their military. And they said, oh, they said, you're very good. We really bought it. And I said, well, that's the, pathology you need to be a creative person,
Let's talk about some of the other things. Kenny, there's a great one. And that's Wait, Don't Kill Me with Lily Tomlin.
Yeah. You all know Wait, Don't Tell Me, which is
right.
Public radio. So it was a live show. We did it 3 years in a row. And it was Lily and Craig Ferguson and Leslie Jordan and Margaret Cho and Pete Holmes.
This is not televised.
No, it was not televised. It was a live show.
Gotcha.
When I die, I will know my life has not been wasted because I had the opportunity at least half a dozen times now to work with Lily Tomlin.
She would have been good in Broadside.
She would have been.
Wouldn't she have been terrific?
Her entire life has been Broadside.
There is now this 20-year span in here where what's Shelly doing? Oh, she's writing the show for Lily Tomlin. Oh, she's writing with Bruce Villash, who I met at SNL because he was a guest writer for a week. And then he actually hired me as a joke writer for the Cable Ace Awards. Remember those? Mid-90s?
I won a Cable Ace Award.
Well, maybe I wrote your presentation speech. I don't know. But
I hated
so I got to know
speech.
Bruce. How did that start to happen where you're writing award shows? Tell us about that experience.
Bruce and I have actually never written an award show together. Would that we had.
What are the award shows that you wrote for?
Oh, God, I've written the Writers Guild Awards, the Producers Guild Awards.
Screen Actors?
Never the Screen Actors. Never, none of the biggies. Bruce has done every biggie. I've done the different tier.
And when you write those shows, you're basically just coming up with one-liners, jokes?
Not necessarily. That's part of it. It depends on what the cause is, who's doing it, who the host is, what they want.
I read something recently, an interview with you, where you talk about meeting Sidney Poitier. What how did that come about? And what's
Okay.
that story?
The first thing that happened is he had a production deal at Sony in the 90s. And I, at the time, was under contract to Sony to do a certain amount of scripts per year for them. And they called me, this wonderful woman, Ellen, who was a executive, who was a very big supporter of mine and very nice. She said, there's this project at Sidney Poitier's company. Would you like to meet on it? And I was like,
Nah.
God, yes.
I'm busy.
And I go into his office, and it was the size of a small airplane hangar.
Wow.
And he had this majestic desk. And there have been a couple of people that I've met in my life that when you walk into their presence or they come into your presence, the chemistry of everything around you changes.
Right. Yeah.
You're not in Kansas anymore. And I mean this in the most respectful way possible. The man is royalty, was royalty. He had a power and a magnetism and a force field of goodness and light and joy, the likes of which I have never experienced.
Wow.
He spoke with great care and deliberation and intelligence and wit and charm. And he asked me to pitch him this story. And back when I first met Gary Marshall, he said, when you're doing a pitch, do it. Don't just read. You got to do it. So I'm, acting out the story and trying not to think, oh God, I'm a fucking moron, And I finished, and there's silence, and the weight of the silence is like Rosetta Stone size, And I always, there's a part of me that always thinks at every meeting, it's like, well, I'm going to be back sweeping snow, and I'm just in Illinois any minute now. And he sort of took a breath, and he sort of went, and he looked up, and then he looked at me, and he went, you are very good at what you do.
Wow.
Wow.
And it was just like, it's like my head just exploded. And we developed, and he left Sony, and it never got made. It's like most of the best projects I've worked on in my career did not get made, with all due respect to the ones that did,
You worked with Yoko, and you remain friends with Yoko. I even think that you have Grapefruit, the book, autographed by Yoko. How did
this year?
Yeah, there you go. How did Yoko come about in your life?
This is really okay. 1980, December 8th.
Yeah.
All of our childhoods, all boomer childhoods were shattered on the day that John Lennon was assassinated. One of my dearest, dearest, dearest friends in the world, also from Northwestern, is a wonderful, brilliant woman named Suzanne Sklar. I get a call from Suzanne, who's in Chicago working for Greenpeace. And she said, Yoko is coming to town to donate some of John's guitars to this museum, and she heard about the Peace Garden, and she wants to see it. But you have to write her because, no, actually, they wanted to invite her, and they said, you have to write the letter to invite her because you know what to say. So I said, well, of course I'll do that. So she called me back like a week later, and she said, Yoko got the letter, she's coming. And I said, I'll be there. Yoko had said, when she called Suzanne, she said, did you write this letter? And she said, no, my friend Shelly did. She said, well, I'd really like to meet her. And because it really touched me. And so we went to her hotel suite, which again was bigger than my parents' house. And we spent the day with her, and we drove around the city, and we went to where the Peace Garden was happening. And there were children from every neighborhood, from 40 different ethnic neighborhoods, painting a mural for weeks there. And somehow the week before, the city had accidentally whitewashed over the mural. Never quite know why. It was an accident. And so all these kids were called back, and they were like, no, we want our mural back. And so Yoko came and Sean came, and they helped paint. And there was a little girl there who was so beautiful. And she gave Yoko a big hug, and she gave Sean a big hug, and she said, I know your birthday is next week. My birthday's next week too. And I just really wanted to meet you. And she didn't know who John Lennon was, and she didn't know who the Beatles was. She was about 5 or 6. She just knew that this nice lady had helped make it possible to, that the mural was going to happen again. And we chatted, and she was so kind. Yoko's, hopefully the brilliance of Get Back has sort of shown that she was not sitting there trying to orchestrate demonically their demise. She was reading the paper and having tea, but anytime I've been with Yoko, she's been so kind and so sweet. And when we left, I think I can tell the story now. She asked me not to tell anybody at the time. She reached into her purse or her pocket, and she handed Suzanne what money she had there, which was about $400. And she said, this is all I have on me right now. She said, I want you to throw a birthday party for that girl and invite all these children, and don't tell them it was where the money came from.
Wow.
And this is the first time I've ever
That's amazing. That's
anybody.
That's really beautiful.
And we went back to her hotel room, and she actually did a Japanese tea service for us. And she just said how moved she was by, what this project Suzanne had put together, what she'd done for all the children and her peace work. And
well, you've cast a very meaningful light onto Yoko Ono, because the mythology in Beatleland, which is changing now with Get Back, is that the Dragon Lady destroyed the group. But your perspective shows this incredibly warm and thoughtful. I'm not surprised, but I don't know if Kenny's a little surprised, or lots of people out there, that this is a really caring, gentle soul.
I still blame her for breaking up the Beatles.
No, Kenny, now, we're going to run out of time because this has been such a joy, but we have a few minutes. I do want to talk about your Cabaret Act, because there's one of those moments in my life. Shelley's doing what now? You're at the Gardenia? I mean, so tell us about the act. And I have a couple, and Kenny will probably have a couple of questions about it. And you can also YouTube. There's lots of great YouTube footage of you and your parody songs and things like that. But tell us about the act.
Gary, you and I have bonded instantly. I'm sorry, I have all this sadness in my
You're verklempt now.
I'm a little verklempt. We bonded over the Beatles. We bonded over the 60s. All of us were way too young to really experience it the way, there are two shades of boomers, the first half and the second half. We're way in the second half. And I just love that music so much. I love that time so much. I love the optimism of that time so much. So I created this character, Groovy Shelly. And I just started putting together shows with a concentration. My first show was called Gay Man Trapped Inside the Body of a Straight Girl, which isn't really politically correct anymore.
Is that where you're supercalifragilistic?
Yeah. I wrote a song about gay marriage having
called, and your name was?
Stupid, Callous, Homophobic, Hateful Legislation.
Right.
And it's that kind of went viral and popped and has been sung at a lot of weddings, which makes me very happy. But my first Groovy Girl show was called One Fine Day, the Groovy Girls of the 60s. And it was Carole King and Laura Nyro and Carly Simon and Linda Ronstadt and Lulu and Cilla Black and, all those great women, and the stories about them and what made them so interesting. And then also my silly little parodies, like Carole King wrote Natural Woman, I wrote Unnatural Woman, and, and it's just, the funny thing is I thought I would do it one night, and someone came up to me after the show and said, I'm doing a AIDS benefit next week that Michael Feinstein is hosting. Would you like to be his opening act? I'm like, yes, which is funny because he came out after I opened and I just made the mistake, and he went to the piano and he said, you say Goldstein, I say Feinstein, I say Feinstein. So
of course,
it's just a little positivity, and to bring a quick mention into the loss of Bob Saget. I love the fact that the show he was doing was called I Don't Do Negative. And I think after 2 years of this, 2 years of a message of really having to look at what matters in our lives, you know, I'm as cynical as anybody. You know, I'm cynical and jaded and angry and all that. But
have you met Kenny?
Yes. But I, you know, Groovy Shelly is about positivity and fun and laughter and friends. And that's, you know, I for whatever chapters I have left, you know, I want to do things that make people laugh and make people happy and interest people, you know, not to be goody,
Yeah.
but just to be honest. And honest can be real funny, and honest can be real negative, and honest can be real positive. We all flip that coin.
I really enjoy that. You know, Kenny, you're a funny guy. I think I'm marginally funny. Shelly's
Funny
very
how?
funny. Funny like a clown. I make you laugh.
How do I make you laugh?
Yeah, actually, yes,
All right,
like a clown.
okay, all right.
And Shelly's very funny. But you know, this show we touched on some serious topics, and Shelly really was very, you know, sobering at the end about the meaning of making people laugh and bringing some joy into the world.
And the last thing I want to be is sobered, so I'm going to go make a cocktail.
Right. Yeah, you're fending. You don't want to be sober and fending.
No, Deborah will be here. I don't have to fend for myself.
All right. Well, I think that I really enjoyed the show. I enjoyed talking to you, and I enjoyed the interview we did last week with Shelly, and watching that again.
Just another thing that is absolutely meaningless and doesn't contribute anything towards society.
Which is apropos.
When do you start having the conversation about dinner? How early can you bring up, what are we having for dinner?
So again, is it always your wife's responsibility?
No. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with, pardon me. It has everything to do with, you need to get everybody on the same page.
Yeah.
You need to say, okay, I know this is going to take a long discussion before we can really settle on dinner. So if it's a large group of people, like I was with a large group of people this weekend, you know, it popped into my head early on that we're probably going to have to start talking about dinner.
Yeah.
And it looks to me, if I bring it up now, this will prompt the conversation, which will go on forever. So at some point we can we'll decide on dinner by 2:30 in the afternoon.
You want my take on this? I think, Kenny, you complicate simple things. I understand that this is
I'm a problem
dilemma.
solver.
You're a problem creator too, which is why you have to be a problem solver. Here's how I handle it.
Well, I will also point this out. If I get up, if it's like 8 o'clock in the morning, do not ask me what I want for dinner.
Okay, fine.
That is way too early. And I get that a lot. I will come down at 8 o'clock in the morning.
These are not
and
issues.
She'll hit me with, what do you want for dinner? I don't know.
These are not issues. Whoever's making dinner kind of gets to choose what is. Now, I'm not going to make, you know, liver and bratwurst, knowing my wife hates.
But it's not always about that. Sometimes you go out to dinner. You can say, what time is dinner? What time are we going out for dinner? Okay, well, what time?
Well, it's an amorphous plan.
And now they deliver. I don't understand.
Right.
Do you do Grubhub?
I don't, but my wife does. Look, we bring it up going, hey, honey, think about dinner? I haven't yet. Let me think about it. Okay. Hour later, hey, what if I make this tonight? Oh, sounds lovely.
So you just consider it part of your day.
It's part of the day, and it's this amorphous thing. And then anytime after 6, it's appropriate. Hey, do you want to go out? Or, hey, my wife will often say, you know, you've made dinner so much, Gary. Well, I'm going to make dinner this time.
You're young, Gary.
I'm young, yeah. And whatever she makes, I enjoy. And again, she knows not to make,
Of course, whatever Deborah makes, I enjoy.
Well,
keep my mouth fucking shut. I'll tell
All
you
right.
that.
Enough of our problems. Let's just say, say goodnight, Dick.
Huh?
I
think
laugh
that's
in.
Gracie.
Say goodnight, Dick. No, that's say goodnight, Gracie. And on laughing, he always say goodnight, Dick. And then Dick Martin would say goodnight, Dick.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Oh, they
All
were
right.
wacky back then.
They were wacky. All right.
All right, are you going to do? You going to tell everybody like how to find us? And all that?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you for watching and/or listening. You can find us on all the podcast platforms. We also have our own YouTube channel, and we'd love it if you'd go there and subscribe. Catch us also on DBNA TV. It is streaming television. And until next time, I'm Gary.
And I'm sending.
That's Brendan Kenny.
Yes.
So long, everyone.
Bye-bye.